Oh, hey friends, Josh Yeager, Santa Barbara dog walker and trusts and estates dervish, out on a walk with my buddy Dodger. Dodger! Yeah, what a good boy. Living his best life. Thought we'd spend a little bit of time today thinking about the ticklish issue of trustee compensation. Now here's how most trust docs work. They say the trustee shall be paid a reasonable amount, but they don't say how much reasonable is or how that would be calculated. Dad never said it ahead of time when the trust was drafted, and there's just basically no guidance. Let's pretend that the successor trustee, the person responsible for settling the estate, is the eldest daughter in this fact pattern. And she spent a lot of time, like 80 hours over a year and a half, trying to get the estate settled. There's some complexity associated with it. One of her brothers is a knucklehead that questions her at every turn. She's getting towards the end of the administration and thinks, I should probably pay myself something for doing this because that was a serious pain in the neck. Question, how much is a reasonable amount for the successor trustee to be paid? And when there's no guidance in the trust doc, a prudent trustee will look to the California Rules of Court, Rule 7.776, which identifies the factors that a judge is to consider when determining whether trustee compensation is reasonable. Let me recite those for you quickly, or to the best of my ability during a dog walk. First thing we got to consider is the gross income of the trust. If the trust produced a lot of income, it would stand to reason that the trustee might be entitled to a little more compensation than a trust that produced no income. Second factor did the trustee demonstrate fidelity to the administration? That means, did they act like a good trustee should, with loyalty to the beneficiaries, with loyalty to the trust terms? Did they basically know what their job was and do something about it? Next factor is whether the trustee has any particular skills, expertise, or experience to fill that office and do the job. If the eldest daughter, successor trustee, happens to be an architect and is fantastic at managing people, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the trust administration, you wouldn't tend to give the trustee more compensation based on their skills, expertise, or experience, because CIS's skills, expertise, and experience don't particularly apply to the administration of the trust. That might be different if eldest sister was a trust and estates attorney, or if eldest sister was responsible for managing the family business and she happened to also be the CEO of the family business. So got to look at the facts and circumstances, but test whether this trustee has any skills, expertise, or experience that would tend to justify a higher level of compensation. Next factor is whether the administration was successful or a failed administration. Again, that's kind of like, how does one define that? A trustee keeping good records of why they did what they did when they did it. This is kind of a crossover with the fidelity to the office inquiry. Next area is the custom in the community that courts allow. What do judges routinely award for compensation for trustees in this community? Next factor would be, what is the custom in the community as to bank trust companies? What would the family have paid had mom and dad not identified eldest sister to be the successor trustee, but instead identified JP Morgan to be the institutional successor trustee? What other factors are there? Custom in the community. Any extraordinary effort or activities related to the administration that the trustee had to do. This would be selling real property, participating in litigation to protect the trust's interests, filing trust tax returns, etc. So those are the factors. You look through all those factors and determine, well, based on these facts, I think the trustee should be paid blank. A couple of ways of doing that. Oh, I forgot one of the factors. The time spent on the administration. How many cumulative hours the trustee spent. Now that one's an interesting one because the trustee might decide to pay themselves based on the size of the trust, not on the number of hours that they expended on the administration. That's fine, but it's one of the factors, so thought I'd throw it in there. So at the end of the process, trustee comes up with, after they look at all their stuff, I've decided to pay myself $25,000 for this administration of mom and dad's $5 million estate. Would that fly? That would be an approach that's based on the size of the trust. Certainly that's reasonable. That's about 0.5% for the settlement of the trust. A little sidebar, we should note there's two types of administrations. One is the settlement. Mom and dad both died. It's now time to sell the house, transfer title of the apartment building, close the IRAs, etc. Like wrap everything up and distribute checks to the beneficiaries. That's one type of administration. That usually takes 1 to 2 years. The compensation for the successor trustee is usually 1 to 2%, depending on a whole lot of factors, but that would be a fixed fee. Whether they got it done in 1 year or 2, it could be 1.5% for the fee. If it took them 5 years, it could be 1.5% for the total fee. That's not an annual fee. That's a cumulative fee for the settlement of the estate. A different type of administration is after mom and dad die, the trust is settled, the estate is settled, and long-term trusts are called for after mom and dad die. So set up a generation skipping trust that the kids are income beneficiaries of and the grandkids are residual beneficiaries of. That would be an example. Or dad dies first and there's a qualified terminable interest trust, a Q-tip trust set up for third spouse, surviving spouse, but third marriage. So they're using part of the marital exemption to put some assets in a longer term trust that'll be around as long as the third spouse is around. So that would be an annual administration where the fee would typically be a percent of the trust assets each year for as long as the trust is around, because we don't know how long it's going to be around, and it might be around for decades and decades. This might not be the last trustee to occupy the office. So that's a little overview on trustee compensation. The team at Anados Law routinely does trustee compensation studies for larger trusts. I say larger trusts because we got to charge something. We charge $7,200 to do a compensation study. So probably shouldn't spend that money on us unless the trustee's compensation is probably 3 to 5 times that for either the administration or a long-term trust. And we routinely serve as expert witnesses in court cases around California on the issue of trustee compensation. More can be found at our website, trustee-help.com. I think you guys are great. Happy travels. Ciao.